Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Behind the Scenes of Macroeconomics Course Development. My name is Danny Shapiro, and I'm on the marketing team here at Hawks. Our speaker today is Hawks Learning's own Kelsey Gamel. As a subject matter expert at Hawks, Kelsey oversees the development of the economics product line. Kelsey received a Master's of Science in Economics from Baylor University and has been published in the Journal of Asian Business and Economic Studies. We are excited to have Kelsey here to share this look behind the scenes. If you have questions during the webinar, please enter those into the Q&A box and we'll address them at the end of the talk. And on that note, I want to hand it over to you, Kelsey.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We've been working hard to develop our Principles of Macroeconomics course, so I'm excited to show you some of that today. So for today's agenda, we're going to be talking about first a general what is Hawks all about, and then what it's looked like to build the course, as well as giving you a preview of the actual courseware and what we've actually built. And then finally, I'll hit on some of the noteworthy features that we have built throughout. So if you haven't heard about Hawks, we are an educational courseware company, and we've been around for over 40 years, but we're primarily in math. Just a few years ago now, we expanded into humanities and social sciences, and more specifically economics. And Principles of Macro is just our second econ course, following Principles of Micro. And one of the things that we're built on is everything we do is contributor-centered. All of our content development is contributor-centered approach. And that means working with educators like yourself to make sure what we're building is something that instructors actually want and something that's tailored to students and what they need and how they learn best and what they struggle with. So we are developed by educators for students. So like I said, we just jumped into econ a couple years ago, and we wanted to make sure that what we're building is something that's actually needed on the market and something that instructors would actually want to use in the classroom. And so we did that by having everything we build be built by instructors like yourself. Nobody knows the student struggle as much as y'all are on the front lines working with students every day. And so you know exactly how students receive material, what they struggle with, what questions they often have. You will have great ideas of how to explain certain concepts, things like that. So everything we do is built by instructors like you, and over 80 contributors across the country have helped us to build our Principles of Macroeconomics course. We attend a lot of national and regional conferences. We're supposed to be at C-Tree next month, but of course that is on hold now. We are hoping that those come back at some point and we could see y'all in real life, but we do attend a lot of those national and regional conferences. As far as my role, I'm the product manager of econ, so I oversee the development of the product line as well as am the lead editor and subject matter expert for the material, and I work with a lot of contributors in terms of training, revisions of content, project management, overseeing things like that. So here's an example of what our courseware looks like. This is from the student perspective. This is our online learning platform. And all of the lessons appear the same so that there's no surprise to students, but they always know what to do when they open a lesson and how to follow the recommended learning path. The first thing in our learning path is Learn, which this is where our instructional content lives. And here's an example of one of the lessons. And one of the things that we focused on when we were building this content was trying to make it digestible from a student perspective. And so we worked to break up text-heavy content. We worked to include a lot of places for students to stop and apply. For instance, here you see we have a reflection question where in the middle of the content on labor productivity, it stops and has students apply that and think about their own productivity in terms of writing a term paper, something they're very familiar with. We try to make sure that all of our content is tangible and real world application throughout. So we have group activities that you can use in class. We have reflection questions like this where students pause and think about it themselves. We have helpful hints, further resources to link out to current news articles, things like that. We also have on your owns, which are interactives through the material. So not just students stopping and thinking or discussing, but something they actually can tangibly do in the courseware. So here's an example of just asking students to apply what they just learned or make sure they grasp it in their memory. And then we also have feedback for that right there. Something that's nice about our Learn screens is that they are fully customizable. So for instance, you could add a Learn screen note as an instructor, which would just add a note at the bottom of the page that includes your own example. You could embed a YouTube video. You could discuss an example or a story that you like to discuss in class, or make a note to students like, note, this is important, pay attention, whatever you like. So you can add that, or you can even hide a screen or replace a screen with your own material. So not only do we have the content already built out, it's totally customizable by you as well. Another thing we have is a print ancillary, the guided notebook, that pairs along with the instructional content, and it helps to guide the note-taking process. And it prompts students to apply what they're learning in real time. And it has fill in the blanks based on the content they just read, or on your own more application content that's distinct from the learned content. And we also have every lesson ending with a macroeconomics and you section that prompts students to immediately apply the broader lesson topic to something that they see in their everyday life. So this is a great ancillary resource as well. So that's it for the first mode. For the second mode of our learning path, we have practice, which practice is a penalty-free environment for students to interact with the material. This is where our questions are. As you can see, this is a free response question where students can enter a number, whatever they think of. In the bottom left, we have tutoring components. So students have access to a wide variety of tutoring components, which I'll show you a couple in a second. We also have iterations. Every one of our questions has 25 to 30 different versions of it, which means there's a different version of the same learning objective so that students won't have the same question as their neighbor, and that they have ample opportunity to practice and work on that repetition of the content. So if, in practice, if a student gets a question wrong, they're immediately given error-specific feedback, which is not only tailored to the exact iteration a student has, but is also tailored to the exact error the student made, so that we can catch those gaps in their comprehension in real time. Right when they're confused, we can correct that so that they get it right from the beginning. We also have detailed solutions that walk through every step that a student would need to do to answer a question like this. And then a student can always return to the question and try a different iteration so they can practice the general concept framework that they learned with a new application. And forgot to say that students can spend as long as they want in practice. They can work as many iterations. There's no penalties. It's just a risk-free zone where they can get their hands dirty on the material a little bit and work with it. Then the final stage in the learning path of our courseware is certify, and this is what's actually submitted for a grade, and this is where students demonstrate their mastery of the material. So as you can see in the bottom, we no longer have that tutor button. We no longer have the skip or try similar. Here, students don't get a chance to skip the question or see a different one. Here, they have to demonstrate that they actually understand the material and actually can comprehend and apply it. If students miss more than the threshold, if they don't demonstrate mastery, then they're popped right back into practice with a tailored set of questions based on the learning objectives that they struggled with in certify. So if they're not quite ready on the concept, then they're popped back where they have those tutoring components and where they can get the help on the topic that they need. Some of the things that we have built throughout our courseware is chapter 0. So in talking with instructors like you, one of the most common pain points we hear is that students don't come to the economics classroom with the foundational math knowledge that they need to be successful in an economics course. So like I said before, we were primarily a math company for a long time. So we have tried and true math content. So we added a chapter 0 math review to our course, and it hits on some of those general topics that students would need in econ. And this is so helpful for students that maybe didn't fully grasp it in high school, or especially if you have a non-traditional student that's returning to the classroom after several years off. And this refresher is so helpful for econ, and to make sure that they have the foundation so that they can actually grasp the economic concepts. We have a diagnostic exam on chapter 0, so you can assign that to all your students, and students that demonstrate mastery in all of the math concepts move straight into the econ content. And if a student needs more help in some, they're immediately assigned those topics that they didn't demonstrate proficiency in, that they then have to work through before they jump into the core macro content. We also have videos. This is something we're working on right now, actually, is a lesson level video for every lesson, obviously. And those walk through the main concepts of each lesson, but they're still pretty short. They're kind of more higher level, general. These are all the concepts from this lesson. We also have example level videos that are dispersed throughout the learned content. And those walk through the specifics of how to solve a certain thing, how to work through a problem, such as calculating the annual rate of inflation, things like that. It walks through every step and shows a student how to do that. We also have chapter projects, which of course, like all of our content, is built by current instructors. And those are a more high level application of the general content of the chapter. And then we also we're working to make a prep textbook that's built on those enhanced learn screens. And that'll be available next fall. Another thing we have in our courseware is interactive graphing, and I will show you. Here's a quick little demo of that. What's cool about the interactive graphing is it's directed by the students, so it's a user-directed evaluated graphing question, but it still has all of the robust tutoring that we have in the normal multiple choice or free response questions. So we do have error-specific feedback based on any type of error a student could possibly make with this graph. And we have step-by-step hint. We can help guide them in the graphing as well. One thing we're committed to as a company is having affordable pricing. We are currently in the beta with Macro. Like I said, this is something we're building out right now. And continuing to add more questions, add more resources, add lesson level videos, things like that. And so the beta pricing through the fall for the courseware is $30, and that's lifetime licensing. So once the student purchases, they have access to it forever, which is great. As we add more questions, as we add those things, they are always going to have the access to that. And if, let's say, they take an intermediate econ course or something else later, they always can come back and work through the principles content. If you get the guided notebook as well with the courseware, that's $50. And if you get just the guided notebook on its own, that is $30. Okay, any questions?
All right, thank you, Kelsey. We already have one question coming in, and this may be a conversation for email, but I'll go ahead and ask you here, and you leave it up to you. An instructor asks, can you assist me in developing developmental economics course at the graduate level?
Oh, that is definitely something we could talk about. As it stands right now, we're working to develop the more, just basically the principal level courses for undergrads, principles of micro, principles of macro, and eventually principles of econ. But that's definitely something we will keep in mind and look into that. Yeah, and I can reach out to you on email as well.
Okay, I'll pass that email on to you after the webinar. A question I had that I think would be good to talk about and instructors would be curious about with the current state of affairs is how can macro be best used to adapt to the current state of the world right now?
Yeah, that's a great question, and actually something that's so relevant. As I'm sure y'all are all coming into contact with your students, it's a crazy time for economics. And students are coming face to face with concepts that they may have had no grid for before, or may have only known of tangentially, but now they're actually experiencing it. And so it's even more important that that's addressed in the courseware and it's not outdated or remote. Something that's cool about having primarily this online courseware is you can add in new content, you can add examples pretty quickly, a really quick turnaround, whereas for like a print textbook, that obviously takes a lot longer to get new examples into the content. And even last week, actually, we added a new further resources box in the chapter on demand and supply that addressed how the oil futures price went negative for the first time due to the extreme shifts in demand seen by the coronavirus outbreak. So it's really a neat opportunity right now to teach economics in a way that students might actually grasp in a different way than they would have a couple years ago. And we focus a lot on that real world application, but of course there's always something new and there's always new data, there's new experiences, there's new examples. And through the customization of the learn screens, you can add those as well. If something comes up, you can always add a new, you can add learn screen notes, you can replace a screen, things like that, to address all the changes and all the varying macroeconomic world we're in right now.
Getting some more questions here. Have an instructor wondering if we have anything in sports economics.
We don't actually. That's a good thing to be thinking about. Say with the development economics, right now we're sticking to kind of the principles level as we develop these and figure out like where the market need is. But definitely happy to hear about any course that would be desirable for sure.
And next question, who are the contributors to macro? John says, I'm aware of the different perspectives from various schools of thought. How representatives are the ideas, concepts, etc.?
Yeah, so our instructional content is built from OpenStax. If you're familiar with them, we're partnered with them, an open ed resource out of Rice University. So they were the foundation for our instructional content, but we sent that out to instructors across the country so while that content was already peer reviewed and peer authored, we wanted to update it, make sure it's inclusive, make sure it's adaptive, things like that. So we sent it out to several instructors. We had instructors at Jacksonville State University, at Clemson University, at, I'm blanking right now on some of them, but at, I'm probably not going to say it right, but the CUNY, lots of different places. You're welcome to get Explore Access and poke around and see if what you see is indicative of what you'd like, but we try not to veer into any certain school of thought, but try to provide a broad sampling of the principles material so students can understand the concepts without leaning in any way. But yeah.
Next question, can students use their own data in some of these applications?
That's a good question. In the courseware questions, no, not as they stand right now. With the tutoring components and the iterations, obviously those take a little bit, they take a lot of work on the front end to ensure that we have all that stuff fleshed out. But in chapter projects and in group activities and in the guided notebook, those require some of their own data and can be larger aside projects than the courseware practice and certify questions. You can also do an open-ended question as well in the courseware as well that you would grade as the instructor.
And next one, can students' results be seamlessly integrated into an LMS like Canvas?
Yes, yeah, we do linking through, I think, all of the LMSs, Canvas, Blackboard, Moodle, those kind of things. And that is definitely something that we can get set up for you for sure.
And we just have a general comment here, I think, on to what we were discussing earlier. I would suggest that good stress be put in the concepts and models like supply and demand, which are fundamental to all economic analysis.
Okay, great. I'll make a note of that right now.
Okay, I think that we have addressed all of the questions. If you do have more questions, you can email us at marketing@hawkslearning.com, and we'll make sure to get those over to Kelsey and to get you back an answer. We really appreciate everyone joining us for today and participating in the question and answer session. And Kelsey, we appreciate you sharing everything you have been working on in the development of this new title. So we will be emailing you all a link to view this on demand, and hope everyone has a great rest of their day.
Thank y'all.